So good morning. So I know we had some great speakers this morning. I want to start my presentation with my experience. I know many of you think success as the metrics for all of us to be where we are, but actually my first company, I was a failure. I started the company in early 80s at MIT, thinking that we can create a software company that can dominate the world, and started out of my dormitory. And what I really learned was what I didn't know, how little I knew. And what I also learned was how brave I was. And I think it did help me to learn from that experience to become much successful in my later jobs at Intel and other places. So failure, I know, is a very difficult word in Korea. But I think failure is the most important word for all of you. And people like me, because I live in Silicon Valley, failure became experience. Failure has no stigma. Nobody talks about my company called Textural Technologies that I started in 1982. It failed. And I joined Intel afterward because I needed a job. But it was a great experience. I learned a lot. And most importantly, what I learned was what I didn't know. It helped me to be successful in later jobs. Nobody talks about that because it was a failure. But for me, it was not a scar. It was an opportunity. And I hope if there is one message today, it's all about opportunity is in front of you, and don't be afraid of failure. And how do we change society, geography, culture of failure to success that are linked in this? Now, there's a Robert Lynch. Why don't you raise a hand? Robert knows this story because Robert and I were classmates from MIT. He was my business partner. Two of us started the company. And we started the company in Switzerland because we said, first of all, he's Swiss. But most importantly, we said, if you want to minimize the tax, Switzerland is a good place to do it. The only problem is you got to make profit to minimize the tax. We did not make profits, so it didn't matter. So I think what's less important there is we're thinking too hard like MBA, but maybe you have to think about more practical terms like Steve Jobs did. Have great products, have a great passion, and seize the moment, and that I think is very important. Today, my talk is about data economy. Clearly, Samsung is getting tremendous benefit of data economy. And you're thinking, are they in cloud? Are they in analytics? What are they doing with the data? Well, actually, what you don't know is what you don't see. But actually, every single data in the world goes to Samsung memories. Every product out there needs memory. You need a DRAMs. You need NAND flash. You need SSDs. You need the storage systems. Actually, data is a great business for Samsung. So it turned out to be a very good place to be. And Korea, whether we like it or not, you are in data economy already. With Samsung, with SK Hynix, together, Korea is already managing over 70% of data that are passing through in the world. So you are in data economy. You are the critical infrastructure that are required to enable data economy. And with the faster data and higher capacity, you are enabling the data economy that are in front of us. So let's start with a little bit about the map here. So what do you think this is, right? This is map of galaxy. How many stars are in galaxy? Any guess? All right, 100 billion, right? 100 billion is a big number. It's a number that is so big, we said the world is a galaxy. Of course, Samsung phone is a galaxy. So it's a great name because it's a limitless. However, there is a little bit more to it that I want to compare. 100 billion stars, but even bigger number of opportunity for data is this. 340 trillion IP addresses. Earlier, there were description of how many products are deployed around the world. It was about 10 to 16 when Kurzweil talked about the amount of products that are out there out of 2010. If you think about all the connected products, it'll be limitless. So what this means has many implications, right? Implication of connectivity, convenience, but also has implication of security, privacy, convenience. You have to think about those dimensions that are coming together. An earlier forum talked about those ongoing challenges that government, industry, companies, individuals have to collaborate and have to agree. So we are in a new world that we're living in. Amount of data that are created in the world is expanding. And I think exponential is right. Look at the curve. It's not linear, clearly. It is an exponential. And the amount of data is doubling every 2 years. So think about amount of data that we create. It's going to double 2 years. It's going to double every 2 years as well. Much of this data is what I call now, it used to be a structured data. Now it's non-structured data. And you probably wonder, what the heck is structured data, non-structured data? Structured data is really more about, let's say, having a database, relationship between customers, their factors from where they are born, information that relates to particular ones. You can create a table. But unstructured data is data that you publish from X, Y, and Z, and you're trying to figure out some correlation out of that. The world is going from structured data to unstructured data, and you can see the yellow is structured data, and blue is unstructured data. Means all of us became publisher. All of us are producer. We are creating a content daily. Now, what's interesting about this whole data is much of them are not tagged. So if you cannot tag, if you cannot identify what they are, it's hard to create a sense out of what it is. So there is an opportunity, and obviously that you will see more and more data will be tagged. You will see more and more opportunity for AI, more and more opportunity to make these data useful to us. But I think the amount of data that are driving all of us is a great opportunity that are in front. Now, because of this increasing data economy, there are a whole bunch of M&A going on. This is a gold rush. In a way, I think we talked about California being the 19th century gold rush. San Francisco was born, and the millionaires are made. Frankly, actually, many of them lost money. The guys that made money, if you recall, who are they? Are they gold diggers? No. The guys that made money is people like Gaps, people that are supplying shovels, jeans, and tools. So in some ways, maybe the opportunity is about infrastructure opportunity, making sure that you can be able to support all these entrepreneurs that are out there. So anyhow, there is a lot of opportunities that are coming, and there is an M&A that are happening out there. And so the next wave of innovation, the way we see it, is really data-driven economy, or you can say AI era, right? My experience from early days of Silicon Valley was really from personal computer era. And then internet era came. Now we've been benefiting out of mobile era, and then we are in AI era. So what does that mean? So what I want to do is really talk a little bit about mobile era, how one did innovation, and then how we can prepare for ourselves for innovation for AI era. So that would be my second part of the talk. So let's look at the Moore's Law. Now, I had a privilege when I was at Intel working for Golden Moore and the Dr. Noyes. And they were, first of all, great people with respect, people with technology. Most importantly, they were people with the integrity. So and I think what I learned from and Intel was constant innovation. So earlier talked about hundreds of years of innovation where Ray said there's one thing that is predictable. IT is predictable. You can increase the capacity, you can increase performance at a lower cost to all of you that are benefiting of the technologies that are in front of us. So, those challenges are continuing, and people say the Moore's law is over. Many of you, I'm sure, heard that. But actually, that's not quite true. Moore's law is really about observation of how the density has increased. Frankly, if you look at the latest GPU, it's not a single processor anymore, right? If you look at GPU, which is graphic processor units, there are multiple cores that are in one chip, including memory. And if you look at those chips, transistor size is increasing. It's almost size of your watch. So almost impossible to create the kind of chips that are required in a day when multiple things are coming together. That's how you're solving this Moore's law issue. Now, single CPU absolutely cannot be more than maybe mouse brain in terms of capacity. But using multiple mouse brains, using the layers of neuron technologies, you can actually train them and think like better than what the mouse can do. And this is where things like autonomous driving, other kind of AI that are coming in to help you predict the better data. So we are in a world where it's not just singularity, but it's many products coming together, creating an innovation. And that's kind of where we are. And I want to use the example of mobile as the how the innovation happens and what's important in this innovation path. So I don't know how many of you remember the movie, but the left side, the left side there, his name is Goldie Gecko. How many of you seen this movie called The Wall Street? Okay, so many of you. So that's the phone he was using. And I remember using that phone when I was working at Intel. It was very heavy. It was very expensive. Talk time was only 30 minutes. No way you can send any messages or internet access. And today, state-of-the-art phones, which I would say one of them is Samsung phones, had the 11 sensors, 5 radios, 20 plus talk time, and weighed only 155 grams. The amount of technology benefit that you get thanks to all the hardworking engineering as well as investment that took is where we are. And I think you will see continuing innovation in multiple areas, not only in the area of phones, but autonomous driving, digital health, or even managing environment, like things like being able to use drones, being able to see what's going on in your farmland, or how the things are growing in your construction sites. Could not be done before. Now you can be able to see it in bird's eye view. I'm a surfer. I do kite surfing. I go out in the ocean every Saturday or Sunday, and I kite. And I don't actually go out there with cameras. I have drones, and I have a transmitter. It follows me. It takes a picture of me without ever being involved by any humans. And this is the kind of world we're living in. So I think you will see a tremendous new business that are coming. Now, the interesting thing about these phones, because it has the GPS, it has the messaging systems and others, it creates new business models. Things like Airbnb and Uber would not be possible without having tools that can give you where you are, how to communicate, understanding who you are, and being able to pay. All those things are very critical part of nature. Later on, I think one of the speaker or panelists is going to talk about the language as a tool to do a natural interaction. That's going to be very critical as well, because now when you're in a car, you don't want to just look at the displays and trying to control your cars. In fact, last year was 1 year where the fatality rate went up. In the history of our fatality rate tracking since the 1960s, it's been going down every year, right? There was 35,000 people that are killed in the road in the year of 2014. 2016 data is over 40,000 people. So what happened? What happened to 5,000 additional fatality? I blame on distraction. I blame on technology that are not ready for humans in the car. We need to improve the technology that can be able to require better driving, better awareness, better warning system. It's coming, but I think this is the opportunity that we can still improve because we're giving them a lot of technology to be distracted. We need to give them a technology that can be useful. We also done a lot of investment in health, being able to know about your body conditions. Think about your automobiles. Think about automobile 20 years ago. How do you measure air pressure, oil? Okay, I'm old enough to know that you take out the oil drips and see whether they're going up oil so you can put more oil in there. Do you guys remember that? Yes. Today, do you do that? Or does it indicator dashboard tells you that you need to put more gas or air or oil change, all those things. So we need to have a better indicator of what I call voice of the body that can tell you more about what's going on. It is doable in my view, and it is an opportunity for all of us in this room that can innovate. And it's kind of things that as you worry about aging society, why not invest in our bodies? Why not invest in learning more about your glucose levels, your blood pressure, your heart rate variability that can give you much better insight about your health? I think that's the kind of stuff that can change the world. They can create new business. It can change our lives better, and therefore we have a much more efficient way. By the way, at the end of the day, in the US alone, spend 17% of its GNP in healthcare. By doing this, I believe we can cut that by half. And I believe that it can be applied to all countries, particularly in the countries where doctors may not be available. Health care may not be good because we're going from the reactive system that we have today to proactive system that can be able to help us to prevent and be able to understand your body much better than would be. So I see a huge opportunities that are driven by sensors, connected cloud, and the applications and algorithms that can make our lives much better than what it is, and that's a great opportunity for all of us to contribute. So a couple of things that helped us to innovate in the mobile side. I talked about technological integration. I talked about its importance to also looking at the open ecosystem because you cannot accelerate innovation alone. Earlier speaker talked about open innovation. It's very critical that we really need to be open. And this is not something that familiar in Korea in my view. I work at Samsung, and Samsung need to work with other companies, LG, Hyundai. We need to work together to create open platform. We talk about open platform with outside, but in Korea, are we practicing open platform? Truly creating a standard that we collaborate to make an advancement that can help us to improve, whether it's a health, whether it's a driving. I think when we talk about open platform, it's our own platform, proprietary. As long as within the group, it's an open. I think it's really important we start thinking about open in global sense, national sense, geographic sense, because that's the only way you can really become a global and creating something that people want to use. It's really important that we have to continue to invest in startups. I know there has been large investment in Korea for startups. Obviously, startups are not just Silicon Valley phenomena. As earlier speaker discussed, many of us are from somewhere else. I was born in Korea. I came here when I was in junior high school, and I started my own companies. Some of them were failure, some of them became IPOs. So it's a clear example of a Silicon Valley story, but that story is happening everywhere else. It's happening in Berlin, it's happening in Israel, it's happening in London, it's happening in Tokyo. So we need to make sure that entrepreneurs have an opportunity to be successful by investing, have an exit opportunities, and failure, again, is not a problem. So this is just one graph of how difficult it is to be successful. When Tay invests, I'm sure, usually we are hoping 1 out of 10 will be a real home run. And then 2 out of 10 is probably going to be making some money. But probably 6 or 7 of them we expect to be a failure. That is what venture capitalists does. And that's probably a fairly good ratio. So we need to recognize that Silicon Valley mindset of this the failures is an experience and failure is okay thing to do. This have to be applied to in other areas as well, in particular in Korea, because only when you do that, you can have learning going on. And those failed entrepreneur will be an asset for your next projects and next opportunities. Now, the disruptors are, again, not just Silicon Valley, it's really happening everywhere. Mobileye is a great example of a company that all the now cars are using to detect the lanes, detect the cars, managing the distance between. Tencent.com became most valuable company, I believe, in Asia. So with we're a gaming platform, and from gaming platform to adding many other platforms, including payment system, where my understanding is 90% of Chinese are using payment system, using the Tencent platform. BlaBlaCar is out of France. I mean, who thinks France is a place for entrepreneurship? But it's happening. I've been advising President Hollande and President Macron last 5 years as his personal advisor, as a part of industry committee. And France was a very difficult place to create jobs, create startups. And the labor inflexibility and tax rate has been a problem. But despite that, startup ecosystem is happening. And you'll see the first unicorn coming out of there called BlaBlaCar. So it is very possible to create many, many successful startups. In fact, I just met with Sohn last week and talks about what his next big $100 million vision fund is. He's thinking big, and he's putting everything in. And I think, to me, that's the entrepreneurial spirit that you see that despite the success he had, he's not giving up and continue to push the envelope. So what is Samsung doing? So I'm going to talk a little bit about Samsung. I'm not trying to promote Samsung other than what we are doing as a way for you to learn even large companies can be able to invest and innovate. So 5 years ago, when the Dr. Wei-H Kwon, the CEO of Samsung, and Jay asked me to have dinner, the discussion was about, can you help to innovate in a Silicon Valley way? I was already retired. I took my last company public in 2010. So I thought I didn't have a lot to do other than surfing and investing. So I talked to Tae-hee, and Tae thought it was a good idea. So I thought I was doing a part-time work, actually, and not a full-time work. But it turned out at Samsung, there's no part-time work. It's 24/7 work. So, but I've been really enjoying it because the opportunity is great, and they give me a lot of freedom to invest, innovate, and do things that are really important for the next century. And in many ways, the freedom is what I really enjoy. So ability to recruit top talent, ability to work with academia in Stanford, Berkeley, and MIT, and others, and just being able to look at exciting new technology that can impact the world. That is a playground that I really enjoy. And so it turned out to be a great experience. And we've been investing large number of companies as well. We are now top 3 largest investor in corporations with a $1.7 billion under management. Last year alone, we invested over 60 companies, and they spent over $200 million. So if you have a great idea, Samsung could be your backer as well. And the way to promote, a way to support. The way I promote Samsung is this way. What better way to bring your technology to a largest platform in the world, right? So if you want to go fast in mobile, we have 24.4% market share in mobile. Or if you want to go in semiconductor, we make every 1 out of 3 chips in the world are made by Samsung. So that is a platform one can take advantage of. So that is the core that I make to the partners. Obviously, there's a lot more complexity and issues we have to deal with. But at the end of the day, size of platform is something that people cannot ignore. Now, one of the things that I also been doing is creating an ecosystem. This is a Necker Island. This is an island where Richard Branson owns. So every year we do an annual startup competition. And this is a startup with over 10,000 startups apply. And we weed out the winners, and we figured out the most exciting companies. We reward them by inviting them to Necker Island, and we have a final competition contest in there. I'm showing you this. Even the large company have to work with startups, and you have to build a bridge between startups to scale-ups to corporations. That's an opportunity for all of us in the room. So just because you're a large company, you do not ignore startups. Just because it's startups, you don't ignore large companies. There is a space for everybody, and it's really fun too because you get to see companies that you haven't heard of. You get to see a startup companies that need help. And being able to have that intellectual discussion is a really fun part of the excitement. By the way, Gary Shapiro, I don't know whether you guys know, he's the organizer, he's the CEO of Consumer Electronics Show. So you have a stage where we also do a contest there. And then Tim Draper is a big-time VC that are supporting startups in this area. So, it's a network. It's important to create a network. It's really important you have a global network. And so the reason I'm showing this card is really we try to play in multiple areas. We work with corporations. We work with scale-ups. We work with startups. We work with VCs that are out here trying to create a network here. M&A. M&A has been a taboo at Samsung. Samsung's last M&A before HARMAN was a failure. It was an acquisition of a company in personal computer space where I think everybody that was involved in acquisition probably got into some difficult jobs. And so when you have failed, it's hard to have a courage to do the next one. But I think that I would say that HARMAN acquisition is something that was very important. How do you get into a new space that you've never been, especially like automotive, where it takes a long time to build a relationship? You got to have a knowledge of each automotive platforms. So the fastest way is get into the platform that are number one in the space where you want to be in. So what we're trying to do is really we see cars not as cars anymore. Obviously, the cars are just with a combustion engine, just moving people from A to B. We wouldn't be interested in doing that. Cars of tomorrow is about a connected experience. It's about mobility. It's a ability to go from different locations, but there are seamless experience from home to car, to your venues, to your work. So we think that it's really important that car is a part of our ecosystem. Samsung has no interest in building cars. I've been saying that publicly. We are not going to build cars. We've done it before. We failed. So we're not building cars. We are very interested in providing IT technology to enable new experience. And we have done a lot of technologies, chips, to sensors, algorithms, connectivity, investment in 5G. So why not use those technologies to create a better experience that are required in an automotive industry that are going to go through huge change? I think the GM CEO, Mary Barra, said that next 5 years will be changing more than last 100 years in automotive industry. And we believe in that. When there's an opportunity for disruption, that's how we want to get into this space. And the combination of the size and scale is what's going to help us to be successful here. Whether our investment into 5G, investment in autonomous or cloud, all those things are going to be needed, whether it is a car, whether it is an IoT, whether it's an industrial, whether it's in your home. So there's a huge, tremendous opportunity for synergy. We see that we can be able to bring combination and scale. So last slide for me is what are the lessons learned for innovation? So, and I think some of the speakers said it earlier, 3 things. One is around mindset. This is going to be the most difficult one. It's easy to copy investment. It's about money. It's easy to put together events trying to create a network. But how do we change our mindset? And this is something that I'm trying to change at Samsung as well. How do you make sure that your career line doesn't get fouled because you failed in some new projects? How do you make sure that you have a long-term horizon where when there is an annual ranking and rating system for your promotion in a large company? So how do you create entrepreneur in the company, not just entrepreneur outside, but entrepreneur in the company? These are very difficult challenges. And so sometimes you have to recognize some of these innovation things might not happen in certain location, and you have to mix and match, and you have to change those DNAs that are ingrained in Industrial 3.0 to Industrial 4.0, which requires a new mindset. Very difficult one. I cannot say I have all the solutions, but it's an opportunity for all of us to work together to solve these. When you do that, you can create a global companies, global market, and global employees that can contribute to your success. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you very much. That was a very good presentation outlining how the role of the vision of the next future. That was great to see, and in particular I really liked your advice about failure. I think that's something that everyone in the room, especially Koreans, can benefit from. I'm told that since we've been running late and lunch is coming quickly, that we'd like to keep this brief. And so maybe just ask a couple of questions. First is that you've been serving in a phenomenal job as a bridge between Silicon Valley and Korea. And here we have many people I know that have flown all the way to Korea. Hold it closer. Yes, okay. Thank you. Thank you. Now, yeah. Well, I'm still learning how to use technology here. That's as you said, usable technology.
It's an analog technology. That's the problem.
Okay. I was just wondering if there's advice you can give to people in the room, because there are many people here from Korea that are obviously here because they want to learn how to work with Silicon Valley, and you serve that bridge role so well.
Well, that's something that I mentioned earlier about the mindset thing. I think that earlier speaker talked about the limitation of Korean geography. So, it has some advantages too. You can really experiment fast in Korea. So you prototype in Korea, and then you figure out where your main market is. And to get to billions, you have to go either China or US as a way to launch pad. So let's assume that US is your destination. Then I think it's important that you pick your partners, your advisors, and your network. Often, I think Korean companies have a scaling challenge when they are leaving from Korea to the global market. So you have to start thinking about what your ultimate game plan is and build a team around your game plan. And the game plan got to be a global talent.
And that's something I wanted to follow up on, because I've noticed, watching you from outside, you've done a great job recruiting top Silicon Valley talent, but more importantly, being able to retain the talent for a Korean company and having them integrate with Korean office. And I was wondering if you could share how you've done that as the last question before lunch.
Right. Well, first of all, I think the hiring the right people is 80% of the game. And I would say 80% time, I think I did okay. 20% time, I fail. So it's not a 100% formula. So I don't know anybody that I know can hire the best people all the time. But 80% of time that you want to hire the people that share the same goal alignment, so that you are in it together. And the way I always attract people is I always go back to what Steve Jobs' comment earlier speaker said: work on some big problem. Work on problem they get excited about. Give them a project they feel like is something they feel they can talk to anybody, including their grandma, about what they were doing. Not about some technology, but talk about, hey, by doing this, I can help X, Y, Z. I can help them with urbanization problems. I can help them with health problems. I can help with transportation problems. So I'm trying to give them a mantra for what are the key problems we're going to solve, and then give them space. And hoping that also you manage, as my job, trying to manage what I call the Korean culture, Silicon Valley culture. Obviously, they're not always in the harmony, so you have to manage that, and I think that's a very important part of the things we do.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And hopefully you'll have time a little bit during lunch that maybe you could ask questions and answer. Well, thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Thanks, guys. Thank you.